The quest to dispel this myth has been a dream for centuries. To reach new heights, conquer new goals, to soar like an eagle. The legend of Icarus from ancient Greek mythology recalls man's attempt to access the heavens via flight. In search of this dream, flying enthusiasts today pursue hang gliding, use ultralights, and fly small engine planes. But the closest man can get in fulfillment of the dream to fly is through the sport of soaring, or gliding as it's often called. Despite offering a sense of freedom unique to sports, there are many misconceptions and unanswered questions about the sport that, when answered, open the door for everyone to enjoy the sport of soaring.
Well, this airplane floats on air because it has very long wings. And it's actually much simpler to operate than a power plane because there's no engine. You fly the airplane by the way the world looks outside the canopy. What the pilot uses to fly the aircraft is the outer environment as an indication of what to do next. And a glider flight is one long maneuver instead of a series of maneuvers as you would have in a power plane going from one point to another. Many people ask, what if the wind quits? And that's just about exactly the same as saying, if you're on the ocean, what if the ocean quits? It can't just disappear. Now, the wind can die slowly, and if that happens, the conditions change and the pilot makes a decision to either go somewhere else or land. But the aircraft flies by the curvature of the wing, just like any aircraft, and the forward motion is not generated by a propeller, it's generated by the weight in the front seat pulling the plane down and forward. And it's the most controllable small aircraft, the most controllable aircraft, and you don't have to go down just where you are, you can choose where you want to go down. From an altitude of 1,000 feet, we have a cone that's got a 60,000 foot diameter within which we can choose a landing place. Comparing this aircraft to a single-engine aircraft, the glide ratio is the big difference, and the glide ratio is great on this aircraft by virtue of the long, efficient wingspan. A power plane has a relatively short wing, and if the engine quits, the power plane descends relatively steeply to a place very near where the aircraft is when the engine quits. In this aircraft, at any point in time, we can glide down at an average of 30 or 40 to 1, meaning this, for 1,000 foot descent, we can go 30 or 40,000 feet off into the distance. Now this, of course, is affected by a headwind, a tailwind, rising air and sinking air, but the average in unmoving air, the glide ratio, by virtue of the engineering of the airplane, the glide ratio for this aircraft is stated as 33 to 1, meaning we can go 33,000 feet for 1,000 foot of altitude loss. It's very much the same as a sailboat. A longer sailboat can go faster through the water. This is an efficiency game, and a sailplane is the most efficient aircraft. Many people expressed basic fears before they climb into a glider. Fear of claustrophobia, and in this very small space, you can see out of the canopy, and almost everyone has much less sense of claustrophobia in this space than they would in their own automobile. Once you're in there, you can see the difference. You can see out and you have virtually no sense of claustrophobia. Fear of heights is very different, and almost everyone who's done some flying and who's experienced fear of heights agrees that there's really no relationship.
Your pilot is fully licensed by the FAA, having passed the glider pilot's test, which includes flight training, soaring techniques, safety, navigation, and meteorology.
And as we take off, what you'll feel is a very gentle acceleration, nothing like an airliner. And once we're in the air and released from the tow plane, you'll feel a smoothness that's not comparable to a small single-engine aircraft. It's like flying. It is flying. And it's the most pleasant sensation you're going to have in any contrivance or mode of transportation. It's hard to imagine until you've done it, but it's really the most pleasant form of flying. Once we've towed the aircraft aloft and released from the tow plane, if the air is absolutely calm, the sailplane will descend at a very standard rate, and in a few minutes you'll be at an altitude where you need to land. But a good sailplane pilot or soaring pilot can use motion in the atmosphere in many different ways to stay aloft or even move off into the distance and go cross country. There are a few very common forms of lift, as we call it, and the most common form and the most commonly talked about form is thermals, which is a thermal is simply a body of air warmed by the ground which rises like a bubble, literally a bubble, and it rises, and as it rises, it actually accelerates for a time. Another form of lift is simply wind blowing against the slope, and the wind against the slope must rise. That's ridge lift, and if the slope is very long, you can fly along the slope, and as long as the wind continues to blow up the slope, you can stay up forever. Another form of lift, which is common mostly in fall, winter, and spring in mountainous areas, is wave. Wave, as we speak of it here, is a phenomenon that is thought of as almost mystical by many soaring pilots who don't fly near mountains. The wave does occur generally above mountaintop level, and you can visualize it as water flowing over a rock in a river. And the singular characteristic of wave, if you're in a sailplane and you fly into an area of wave, is smoothness.
I was very apprehensive when I first went up, but once I got there, it was really beautiful. I was very comfortable.
Once I get up there, though, it's very, it's serene, it's just very quiet, and you kind of forget all about your fear.
I was looking forward to it. It was a lot more serene and quiet and soothing than I thought it would be. I thought it would be more like being in a plane, but it's not at all. It was a lot nicer.
For sheer beauty, the sport of soaring is unsurpassed. Seeing the familiar earth drop away creates a profound feeling of awe as you climb among the clouds.
The sensation of flying through the air in a sailplane is unlike just about any other, well, certainly unlike any sensation I've ever had. And there is some noise. A lot of people think it's silent. There is some wind noise. And it's just a shushing sound, very pleasant. And of course, it's louder if you go faster. But the smoothness of the ride and the smoothness of that sound, the beauty of the view, well, there's just about nothing about this sport that isn't quite beautiful. And personally, speaking as a pilot, the single most beautiful aspect of it is the satisfaction of being up in the air and sailing around in the sky by virtue of your own wits and having nothing to do but please yourself.
Aside from the swish of the wind over the wings, there's total meditative silence that has a refreshing, unwinding effect. As you gain altitude, seemingly moving in slow motion, you leave mundane cares on the earth below. You found a new peace, a new feeling, and above all, a new sport that offers experiences unavailable elsewhere.
Awesome. It was awesome. It was one of the best thrills I've had in a long, long, long time. This is great. And this is the first trip of many.